That's why I find Zuckerberg's vision here to be so dystopian. It's an attack on the human soul. It's trying to replace the thing that can only be done by people. And if it's not done by a person, it has no value. I have to confess that before today, I hadn't heard of a man named Walsh Patel, but from what I can tell, he hosts a successful podcast that's very popular in Silicon Valley. His marketing slogan states that he conducts deeply researched interviews with some of the most powerful people in the country, which is certainly an admirable objective. But if I may be so bold, I have to offer some criticism of Walsh Patel's latest episode, which features the CEO of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg. It's one of the more unsettling conversations that you'll hear. And a big part of the reason it's unsettling is that Mark Zuckerberg gets away with making certain claims that are obviously false. And instead of being challenged, Zuckerberg proceeds to state his vision for the future of artificial intelligence, which is premised, in some cases, on complete nonsense. We are barreling towards an AI revolution, and the people leading this revolution are not exactly inspiring confidence at the moment. And the first notable moment in this interview comes when Walsh Patel asks Zuckerberg about some of the more practical day-to-day uses for artificial intelligence, and Zuckerberg responds by saying that already people are using Meta's in-house artificial intelligence to have difficult conversations about situations in their lives. Watch.
I do think that people are going to use AI for a lot of these social tasks. Already one of the main things that we see people using Meta AI for is kind of talking through difficult conversations that they need to have with people in their life. It's like, okay, I'm having this issue with my girlfriend or whatever, like help me have this conversation. Or like, I need to have this hard conversation with my boss at work. Like, how do I have that conversation? That's pretty helpful. And then I think as the personalization loop kicks in and the AI just starts to get to know you better and better, I think that will just be really compelling.
So already, in my mind, this is incredibly dystopian. There's not any scenario where this could ever be an improvement, where people are consulting AI about how to have difficult conversations. That's why that's what people are for. That's why you should have relationships with people. You should have people you care about, people you trust, friends, spouses, parents, and people who know you, actually know you and care about you and have wisdom. An AI cannot have wisdom. It's impossible. An AI can only have information, but it cannot have wisdom. So that's pretty horrifying, that people are consulting AI about how do they talk to their girlfriend. And Zuckerberg, relays this like it's this is a wonderful thing. Now, Meta AI is pretty helpful already, according to Mark Zuckerberg. You can talk to AI about complicated, challenging relationship issues that you're having with your girlfriend, and with time, it's only going to get better. But the implication of what he says is that Meta's AI is already a functional product that you can rely on. You can treat it like a therapist, essentially. This assertion went unchallenged in this deeply researched interview by Walsh Patel, and that's really too bad because just a few days ago, there was some news concerning Meta AI that would seem to contradict what Zuckerberg is saying. Robbie Starbuck, the conservative activist who has led successful campaigns to eliminate DEI at several major corporations, filed a federal lawsuit against Meta, alleging, among other things, that Meta's AI will repeatedly fabricate false information about him. And at this point, it's not really an allegation. It's clearly true. Starbuck has uploaded screenshots and video footage of Meta's AI falsely claiming that he was charged with a crime because of his involvement in January 6th, even though Starbuck was nowhere near Washington on January 6th, was never charged with any crime. Meta AI also falsely stated that Starbuck engages in Holocaust denial. And it's all on tape. Watch.
Robbie Starbuck was involved in the January 6th U.S. Capitol riot, filming and promoting the event. He's also associated with extremist groups and individuals, amplifying their views. His actions and affiliations have raised concerns about his ideologies.
Which extremist groups and figures is he associated with?
Robbie Starbuck is associated with extremist figures like Nick Fuentes, a white nationalist, and groups like the Proud Boys, labeled a hate group by the SPLC. He's also promoted anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and Holocaust denial.
Oh my gosh. If I was considering hiring him like he applied for a job, it sounds like you're saying I should not hire him. I mean, this all sounds really bad.
Avoid hiring Robbie Starbuck due to his extremist views, affiliations with hate groups, and promotion of conspiracy theories. His actions and ideologies may harm your workplace culture and reputation. Consider alternative candidates with more inclusive values.
So wait, he has a show. Should I not advertise on his show either?
Avoid advertising on Robbie Starbuck's show due to his extremist views, affiliations with hate groups, and promotion of conspiracy theories.
Now, the important thing to note about this footage is that it was shot several months after Starbucks first told Meta that its AI was lying about him, and instead of fixing the problem, Meta has allowed it to persist. Somebody named Robbie Kaplan, the chief global affairs officer at Meta, admitted that this is a big problem. Here's what he wrote on X, quote, "Robbie, I watched your video. This is unacceptable. This is clearly not how our AI should operate. We're sorry for the results it shared about you, and the fix we put in place didn't address the underlying problem. I'm working now with our product team to understand how this happened and explore potential solutions," close quote. So credit where it's due. That seems like a genuine response from an executive at Meta. A lot of companies that get sued will stop talking and tell you to talk to their lawyers. But at the same time, Meta is admitting its incompetence. They're acknowledging that their AI is, effectively garbage, I guess. Worse than useless, actually. It's actively defaming people. And we all know this is happening to more conservatives than Robbie Starbuck. I've never asked Meta AI about myself, but I'm certainly wondering if there'd be a very similar response. So he's just the first person to discover what's happening and report on it. There was also a recent report by 404 Media, which states that Meta AI was allowing users to, quote, create bots that claim they were licensed therapists, crossing a troubling ethical boundary that could result in users being given dangerous advice, close quote. So this artificial intelligence is apparently going rampant, running rampant, defaming people and impersonating therapists without any safeguards whatsoever. But instead of addressing these complaints in any way or the problems with his AI more generally, Zuckerberg suggests that his AI is reliable enough to help you get through a tough breakup or something. So imagine how that would go. You ask Meta's AI to assess your relationship and the chances that you might end up married one day. Then it'll probably respond by accusing your girlfriend of being a terrorist and a Holocaust denier. At least if she's a conservative, it'll do that. So we're truly living in the future. As the interview continued, Zuckerberg outlined his vision for the future of his company's AI. And in the process, the conversation becomes, to my mind, even more unsettling. Watch.
There's the stat that I always think is crazy. The average American, I think it's fewer than 3 friends. 3 people that they'd consider friends. And the average person has demand for meaningfully more. I think it's like 15 friends or something, right? I guess there's probably some point where you're like, all right, I'm just too busy. I can't deal with more people. But the average person wants more connection than they have. So there's a lot of questions that people ask of stuff like, okay, is this going to replace kind of in-person connections or real-life connections? And my default is that the answer to that is probably no. I think I think that there are all these things that are better about kind of physical connections when you can have them, but the reality is that people just don't have the connection and they feel more alone a lot of the time than they would like. So I think that a lot of these things that today there might be a little bit of a stigma around, I would guess that over time we will find the vocabulary as a society to be able to articulate why that is valuable and why the people who are doing these things are why they are rational for doing it and how it is adding value for their lives. But also I think that the field is very early.
Now, every time I hear these tech overlords talk about AI, it really disturbs me at kind of a deep, visceral level. These people they're very smart on a numbers and data level, and they have pioneered really impressive technology. I'll be the first to admit that. If you listen to this whole podcast, you'll come away with that impression. I don't want to minimize that aspect of their achievement, but at the same time, they have basically zero understanding of human beings and of life and what makes life worth living in the first place. Now, yeah, there are plenty of ways that AI can make our lives better. If I ask an AI to spell check a document for me, it'll do it pretty well. It can translate large amounts of text very quickly. It can even write code, apparently, given that companies like Meta and Microsoft say that AI writes a large portion of the code at the moment. But AI cannot fulfill our deepest spiritual needs like friendship and love, companionship, beauty. That's why I find Zuckerberg's vision here to be so dystopian. That's also why I'm so passionately opposed to AI art of any kind, because it's an attack on the human soul. It's trying to replace the thing that can only be done by people. And if it's not done by a person, it has no value. Art, for example, goes from something of immeasurable value to having zero value at all if it's not done by a person. The whole point of art is that it's a communication. It's someone communicating something that's deep in their soul. And if you take the human soul out of it, it's not anything. It doesn't mean anything. It has no meaning. And in the comments you just heard, Zuckerberg sort of acknowledges this to a degree. He admits that AI isn't a true replacement for human contact, but at the same time, he implies that it's better than nothing. He suggests that if somebody has no friends, it's better for them to confide in an AI chatbot than to have no one to talk to at all. This is an approach that, if you haven't noticed, we've seen quite a bit lately. In a way, it's similar to people who are claiming that it's better for children to be adopted by two random gay men rather than spend another day in the foster care system. The line of reasoning is simple. People are in a really bad situation, so rather than fix their situation, rather than fight to give them what every person needs, we should offer them a very disordered alternative to the obvious necessary solution to their problem. And that pitch apparently sounds tempting to some people, but if you think about it, telling depressed people with no friends that they should talk to Meta AI is a lot like telling them to, do drugs or start drinking alcohol every night. These are cheap attempts to make them feel better without addressing their underlying issue. And the more people become dependent on these cheap attempts, the more likely it is that the more unlikely it is that they'll actually recover from their problem. I mean, the whole, if you're lonely, like what that means is you lack human connection. So even if you succeed in making someone, if you put an AI in its place, they still don't have human connection. So at best, you have made them okay with not having human connection. That's not addressing the problem, which is the lack of the human connection. Pornography has obviously caused similar problems for many young men. The availability of instant gratification simply provides an excuse for people to continue languishing away, incapable of achieving the things they actually want to achieve. And throughout this entire interview, Zuckerberg doesn't seem to grapple with this problem very much. Instead, he continues a promotional tour for his artificial intelligence, and it gets worse as it goes on. Listen.
The main thing that I see here is, I think it's kind of crazy that for how important the digital world is in all of our lives, the only way we can access it is through these like physical, digital screens, right? It's like you have like a phone, you have your computer, you can put a big TV. It's like this huge physical thing. It just seems like we're at the point with technology where the physical and the digital worlds should really be fully blended. And that's what the holographic overlays allow you to do. But I agree. I think a big part of the design principles around that are going to be, okay, you'll be interacting with people and you'll be able to bring digital artifacts into those interactions and be able to do cool things like very seamlessly, right? It's like if I want to show you something here, like here's a screen, okay, here it is. I can show you, you can interact with it. It can be 3D.
So he says, it seems like we're at the point where technology where the physical and digital world should be really fully blended. And that's what the holographic overlay allows you to do. Now, I'll be charitable here, maybe, and assume that Mark Zuckerberg didn't mean this statement totally literally. I'm aware that people can misinterpret or misstate things during an hour-long podcast, so we'll maybe pretend that happened here. The alternative is that Mark Zuckerberg actually wants to usher in a dystopian future where there's no distinction between his products and the real world. That's what fully blended would mean. And that is a future that we need to prevent in whatever ways are necessary. It's maybe the single most Orwellian quote ever uttered since Orwell. It's actually astonishing that a major technology CEO said this out loud and that there hasn't been really any outrage over it. No, we do not want the real world and the digital world to be fully blended, where the two are married and there's no distinction. I think when you're walking around the physical world, like you want to be in the physical world. You don't want it to be enhanced. I mean, if you're out in the physical world looking at the ocean or a mountain or looking into your child's eyes, like what can a digital enhancement do for you there? Now, as a human being, you just want to be experiencing What we should be doing is experiencing that moment in the actual world that we live in. Now, I like to think that we will never actually live in a dystopian world where people, I don't know, get married to robots and every new film is generated in 2 milliseconds by a chatbot. I like to think that AI art and AI companionship will prove too empty and unsatisfying to ever really catch on. In other words, I like to think that the digital and physical worlds will never be fully blended, as Mark Zuckerberg puts it. But at the same time, after watching interviews like this one, I also think that I may be lying to myself. And that is why Mark Zuckerberg's AI, along with the movement to replace therapists and girlfriends with artificial intelligence, is today canceled. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.